19 to order. Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Donna, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, I will. Councilmember Dorsey.
Present.
Councilmember Anesco.
Here.
Councilmember Kranz.
Present.
Mayor Rogers.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Peterson.
Here.
Councilmember McDowell.
Present.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Here.
Okay, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
No, ma'am.
Okay, seeing none, I will make the announcement that our public testimony has changed a little bit. Instead of cards, we have a sign-up sheet out in the lobby. Please use your name and which item on the agenda you would like to speak at, and then we'll call you up when that agenda item comes up. So we'll start with council reports. Councilmember Schmidt.
Good evening. Last week, Thursday, attended the EDC membership drive with the Economic Development Council board members and membership, as well as some city staff. It was a great event at the Ridge Motorsports Park, and got to see some of their new operations coming online. It's a pretty impressive facility as it continues to grow, and it is quite a fun place with all of the different activities there and what they have to offer. On Friday, we had the glorious opportunity to tour the C Street landfill with staff, and it was really good to get kind of a boots on the ground perspective of the C Street landfill in that particular area of the city. And I appreciate Craig and Jeff for facilitating that. It was well worth the time. And then afterwards, had the opportunity to join the rest of you all and staff again to cut the ribbon on our amazing downtown connector project. And again, just well done with all of that, and very impressed with the way things are going there with that project and the closeout of that. Very happy with the final product as well. And then this week, I'm really looking forward to diving into the Executive Budget Committee meeting on Friday, one of my most favorite topics, which is budget and finance. And that's all I have.
That's all you have, okay. Thank you, Joe. Councilmember McDowell.
Participated in the bite that was on Railroad Avenue, represented our Lions Club. I attended the North Mason Chamber Lunch out in Belfair. Attended the Country Clinic, is that right? Country Clinic? Ribbon cutting. Went to the EDC membership drive out of the Ridge. Took also a tour of the C, and I'm going to be old-fashioned here, C Street dump, because that's what I grew up with, so anyway. Ribbon cutting for the roundabout and Alder Street, the connector project. Went tonight up to Mankey Hill. Tonight is National Night Out, and it's all over the United States. So they had a block party, so that was fun to go to. And then I'm heading to one at Neyland Park after the council meeting. Business after hours on Thursday, and that's my weekend weeks.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Peterson.
I also attended the EDC membership drive and the ribbon cutting on Friday for Downtown Connector Project. I had a couple of constituent meetings and phone calls last week, and I'm very much looking forward to our budget meeting on Friday.
Okay, thank you. Looking forward, besides some of the things mentioned in the past, well, today, Jeff, our city manager, Knighton, and I met with the Port Executive Director Wendy Smith, and also with their chair, Dick Taylor, just to talk to them and talk about issues coming up in the future. You'll probably see more working together, all our organizations in town. At least that's our council's goal. We have an entrance interview with our auditor on Thursday. Budget committee, as already mentioned, will be meeting with executive group on Friday, and have various constituent meetings in the past and coming up on various issues. So that's my report. Councilmember Kranz.
Well, just did a few activities that these fine people have already described. First time I'd ever been to the C Street dump on the other side of the freeway, and that was kind of an interesting experience. And then I attended the ribbon cutting for the roundabout downtown there, and we had a staff reading, and that concludes my weekly activities.
Thank you. Councilmember Anisco.
Outside of our weekly briefings and meetings. I attended the ribbon cutting at the new clinic downtown on Railroad 7th. Also, the ribbon cutting downtown connector project and the tour of the C Street landfill as well. And I'm hoping to attend the state audit entrance meeting on Thursday, and hopefully the dinner at the lake next Thursday.
Thank you. Councilmember Dorsey.
Well, I'm going to make this really quick. I have really nothing to add to all of that.
Thank you, sir.
So we'll move on.
Okay, this is the time for our first spot for general public comment. So Donna, do we have anyone?
No one for the first slot.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as published?
So moved.
Second. We have a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as published. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll start off with a presentation from Dwayne Wilson. I don't see Dwayne.
He will be here. He was planning on being here.
Okay, so if Dwayne shows up, we will add him into our agenda at some point. Unless no one's here to speak for Dwayne tonight, is there? Okay,
In
so,
that case, I move that we table the Bluegrass from the Forest LTAC report until later in the agenda.
Second.
okay. Any discussion? Okay, we'll move that to later in the agenda, hopefully when Dwayne shows up.
And we'll have to vote on that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Should we vote on the change of agenda for Dwayne?
Just a clarification, Deputy Mayor, you tabled for later in the agenda this evening or
Correct.
for another date?
Later in the agenda for this evening.
Okay, thank you.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, next, we have a presentation from Public Works Director Gregory on the wastewater treatment plant receiving Outstanding Performance Award.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Happy to bring to you tonight the Outstanding Performance Award from Department of Ecology for the Maine wastewater treatment plant. And we'd like to recognize our staff members down there that made getting that award possible. Brent Armstrong, our Superintendent of Sewer and Storm, Chris Norwood, Joan Roy, Bart Hill, and Chris Kingery. Our operating staff down there, they run the day-to-day operations of the Maine wastewater treatment plant, and Matt Dixon, an operator in training, and really recognizing Brent Armstrong for the fantastic job that he has done. I think we've mentioned in the past of how difficult it is to bring in outside operators into the wastewater treatment plant, and Brent has done a great job of just bringing original staff through that process and bringing them online and getting them trained up and certified to be operators in-house, and has done a fantastic job at promoting that and moving that forward. I would like to introduce Brent and Pat Bailey, the Senior Compliance Specialist from Department of Ecology. She has been with Department of Ecology for 30 years, 20 of those in the water quality sector. And at this point, I will hand it off to Pat Bailey.
Good evening. Thank you for having me come. I'm a little short, so sometimes I stand off to the side or you just see this bouncing head. So I'm here tonight, and this is a terrific pleasure because normally when you see me, I'm here to tell you that you're going to have to upgrade the wastewater treatment plant or do something new in your collection system or build a lift station, something that's really spindly. But tonight, we get to celebrate because you've done all that and you've done a really good job. And this award indicates that you've accomplished a lot here at the City of Shelton. So this award is given to wastewater treatment plants throughout the state of Washington. There are about 300 of them. You would think that each treatment plant would be able to achieve a lofty goal of meeting all their permit limits. Well, that's not so. Only 111 received this award this year out of almost, well, a little over 300. So it's hard. You have to be able to operate the plant, do the tests, get the tests in on time, make sure they come into that little magic number that it says in your permit that you can't go over. Some you can't go under. There are multiple reports that Brett has to oversee and make sure that comes in. And if you do a really good job and achieve that, then you get one of these. So we're very proud of this award. It's been in, I think this is what, maybe the 23rd year. I've given this to the city of Shelton several times, so this is not your first award, but it's the first one that we presented at council. We have a letter here from our acting manager, Andrew Colacius, and it says, Dear Mayor, the Department of Ecology's Southwest Regional Office is pleased to transmit this to you enclosed performance award for the year 2018. We're always a year behind. We recognize the efforts and attention to detail that is required of your operating staff to achieve and meet our permit requirements in good weather, bad weather, during normal conditions, and unforeseeable emergencies. We are grateful for these efforts and the city's efforts to protect water quality. You're very fortunate to have a really good operating staff. These guys are the heroes and the guardians of our waterways. They are mechanics, they are electricians, they're the jack of all trades sometimes, and they're the guys that when that rain is pounding on your roof, they're down at the plant. I really appreciate all the hard work that these gentlemen and women do to keep our waters clean and safe for us. So with that, Brett, here is your 2018 award. Washington State Department of Ecology recognizes the exemplary efforts and work accomplished by the crew of the City of Shelton and the dedicated staff of the Shelton Wastewater Treatment Plant. Thank you for protecting and keeping Washington waters clean. With all that said, these guys could not do this without the support of the council and the community. You folks provide them with the tools to do the job. And thank you so much for that.
Get up here, Bart. He actually came from work, so.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank
Pat.
you.
Thank you.
And I'll just add to that, this is not 2018 issue, but I also know that all the things you've been going through this year and how much I personally appreciate that. And so congratulations on this last year and getting through this year. So thank you. Any other comments from the council?
Yeah, this letter here I'm reading says that they've got it 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome.
It isn't if they get 5, they get a bigger plaque.
Work hard, guys.
Can I assume that the other 2/3 of the wastewater treatment plants are spending more money this year? Like you were saying?
Some of them will be spending a lot.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brent. Okay, next we're back to Craig. Presentation on the road rating system that we've seen before, but back again.
Yes, Mayor and council members, really we updated you and briefed you on really the workings of all of the kind of the technical components that went into road rating. And after we actually compiled all of that data, took a look at actual numbers, it was something that the council did ask for, somewhat of a report card, and how we are establishing what regions, what areas we're going into. I think Chuck has, yes, up behind me is that map of the 11 regions of Shelton that we broke it into. And what you've got in front of you is the overall basic report card of where we're at. And it gives us a real roadmap of where we're headed moving forward with road rating and really establishes where we're going to be doing the work in the years to come. So when we took a look at this, you can kind of see the columns further to the left are the really good road sections. As you move further to the right, those are the ones that are in real need of some sort of treatment. And what we identified was those sections of roadway that fell below a PCI or a pavement rating of 70 or less, that really fell into whether they needed a chip seal or an overlay, whether it be a thin overlay or a thick one, or reconstruction of anything under a 25. So you'll kind of see the percentages of these areas, and what we did was took the percentages, basically added them all together from everything under the 70 PCI, so the third column over, and took the percentages and combined all of those together, added those up for a scoring system, and you can see that far right-hand column gives you the percentage of the amount of roads in those areas. So that could be a very large area that has a lot of roads in it, or it could be a smaller area with much fewer roads in it, but the overall percentage of those roads that are failing is really what we looked at. We didn't look at a dollar amount, we looked at the number of roadways that were failing within an area or a region. And you can see we've identified West Mountain View to be our top priority. It's been quite some time since they've had any reconstruction or any treatment in that area. East Mountain View has, which is falls within that second spot, has had some treatment in the past. It's been quite a few years ago, but as you can see, it's a fairly large area and a lot to get done in the east side of Mountain View. And then just moving through, if there was a tie between a couple of different regions, we really looked at the ones that were further down on the list as far as real need of reconstruction or an overlay, not necessarily a crack seal or a chip seal at that point to kind of make that tiebreaker. So you can kind of see where we would be for the next really 11 years moving forward. We will be reassessing this every third year to bring back and take a look at where this moves to. But moving down the list, working from top to bottom over the next couple of years. And then, like I said, in the start of year 3, we'll take another look at this and see, go back out, re-rate the roads, and see if this list changes at all. Obviously, it is going to change somewhat if we're going into West Mountain View this year and we're going to put a couple $100,000 into residential roads. Obviously, this list is going to change when we take another look at it at the beginning of year 3. So I would love to answer any questions if you have any, or the process that we use to get to this report card and how we're going to use this moving forward.
Thanks, Craig. Deputy Mayor?
Just one comment. I think we discussed this last time, but the percentages here are actually askew just a bit because they're based on the total number of sections, which does not include the gravel sections.
Correct.
But the gravel sections are then divided into that total number for percentages. So the percentages columns aren't quite right on here. If we could maybe get that updated and back out. The numbered sections are all correct, and I'm sure that the trends are the same, but the numbers don't quite add up across the line. And I know we discussed that at the last meeting, but there's been a few other things on your plate. So for example, on the first line, West Mountain View, if you were to add 5, 14,
Correct.
9, 10,
Correct.
21, and 2, there's actually 61, not 59 sections. And so that as you're dividing 2 into 59, it would be 3, but 2 into 61 would not be the same. So.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
Question, roughly, Craig, how many, so the staff does, internal staff does the road rating, correct?
That's correct.
We don't contract that out to anybody else.
That's
or stuff. Roughly how many hours of staff time does this take? I know we haven't done one in the past, so there's probably more time this upfront, but I'm just curious, how much time roughly does that?
Just in the road rating itself, not putting the plan together and the rest of.
If you could kind of, like a lump sum, is it all
So
A good
the actual
solid
road
month of
rating,
time.
boots on the ground, actually looking and assessing the roadway. We had about 600 hours into that, the first round. We went back out and spot checked after we actually started establishing the road rating and put another somewhere around 100 hours into spot checks after we started to develop this and wanted to go verify what information we actually had gathered to make sure that it was accurate. So overall, I would guess that we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 to 1,000 hours into this road rating plan and putting it together for the first time. It's obviously going to get much easier and moving forward now that we've established it, and we can go out and we've got some folks trained that can actually go out and do the assessment. It won't take quite as long to go back through all of those roads again.
So how many were involved in going out? How many staff was involved in going out?
The original road rating was done by one person.
Okay.
It was done that way just for consistency. We didn't want a couple of people out looking at it. We wanted one perspective on it, and then we had one other person go out and spot check.
Okay.
Who was a senior employee, been in the department for about 30 years, that went out and actually did the spot checks on the intern that actually did the original rating.
Okay.
The point to highlight here is that it takes a lot of staff time, and it takes not only a lot of staff time, but staff experience as well, as you pointed out, having tenured employees who have the experience and can identify. It's not just driving city streets and whatever you feel or see a pothole or feel the doors shake in your car, this is a bad road. I just want to point out that this is well done, and this is data driven and based on expertise and skill set that we have in house. And I look forward to kind of continue to keep the momentum going with this. And the every 3 years, every third year, how is that derived in? Can you give me some rationale behind the update every third year?
We didn't want to burden staff too much with reviewing this on an annual basis. You're not going to get much change year over year, but also didn't want to go too long where we were looking at this and maybe something had changed. One region we did have several years ago where we had a freeze thaw in the Mountain View area, that it was the only place that saw it. We had some roads that just completely turned to mush, and we had to rebuild those. It was after a real bad freeze thaw. It's been about 8 or 10 years ago, but we really didn't want those things to get away from us, and really it's a lot on traffic volume too. So if we have an area that's really growing, it's got a little more pressure on the roads, those roads are going to deteriorate some more than others. So we didn't want to have the gap be too much, that we weren't looking at this, on a regular basis, but certainly didn't want to do it every year, that we were wasting staff time doing that. So that's where we came up with doing it every third year, and taking a new look at it, and figured that was a really good time frame to take a new assessment of those.
Awesome. Thank you.
Other questions?
How does that timeframe compare to industry standards statewide? I mean, how do other cities, is there any standard or not so much?
There really isn't. Street Saver, we kind of looked into that, more with Street Saver. They more identified a time frame of 3 to 5 years. And really, I think that takes a good look at the road treatment that you're doing. Any of those overlays, we're talking those lasting somewhere in that 7 to 10 year range before they would need some sort of maintenance on them. Chip seal, obviously, less than that. So looking at those, especially those roads that we have done a project on or that we have done residential paving on before. I mean, this program started about a decade ago when we went in and started doing residential paving. So those roads that are 10 years old, we did take a look at them now, but if those do have some cracking in them, something that we want to keep an eye on and take a look at more regularly. So that was kind of what we got out of the Street Saver data, was they were suggesting to do it every 3 to 5 years. But I think with this area that we've sectioned off into 11 different zones, I think it makes more sense to do it a little more frequent than 5 years.
Anything else? Thank you very much, Craig.
Thanks.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to our business agenda. Is there anyone signed up for?
There is not, Mayor.
Okay, no one signed up. Is there anyone who has not signed up wants to speak to any of the business agenda items? There's 3 of them. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the first one, which is back to Director Gregory on information on sole source purchase for membranes.
So getting the performance award from Department of Ecology is a great segue into the wastewater treatment plant. We have had some violations at the satellite wastewater treatment plant, and it's really been due to our lack of biosolid or bioreactor plates that are out at the satellite plant that really take the solids out of the effluent that's moving through that satellite plant. The issue that we've had that when we first installed those, the membranes that we have right now are a very thin material. They are not very resilient to sharp things that poke through them. As soon as they do get a hole in them, they're pretty much worthless. We have looked at going to ceramic plates to not only increase the durability of those, but also increase the total capacity of the satellite plant. Right now, we're permitted for about 500,000 gallons a day, and the ceramic plates would upgrade that to about 1 million gallons a day. So we could get some growth out of that without having to construct new tanks, things like that that are very costly. But the issue that we've run into, we did have this budgeted to go move forward with the ceramic plates, but since we've gotten the partnership with the Squaxin Island Tribe and have looked at a much larger project to divert some of the sewage from Upper Mountain View to the satellite plant, we really wanted to take a look at, with our sewer comp plan and our sewer facility plan, is to look at what would be the best use of the money moving forward. So we didn't want to go and do something where we were going to have a $1.2 million purchase of ceramic plates and then find out a year or two from now that that wasn't the best decision that we had if we do end up moving forward with a much larger project. So really wanting to wait until we get done with the sewer comp plan and the facilities plan to really, for lack of a better words, put a Band-Aid on what we've got going on out at the wastewater treatment plant. And what that is we've got 3 tanks at the plant, all stacked side by side, where effluent comes, sewage comes into those tanks, goes through these bioreactor plates, filters out the solids, effluent through them to the other side for disinfection. And right now, we are down to about 80% in 2 of the tanks. 1 tank is completely offline. So failure rate in these runs, we've been in contact with Kubota, who is the manufacturer. Failure rate they've identified is somewhere between 60 and 70%. Right now, we're running somewhere between 75 and 80% with total plates that are in the ditch that are actually working. This purchase would really identify, right now there's 10 banks of plates that have 200 plates in them. Those need to stay wet all the time. If you let them dry out, they're worthless. You have to throw them away. So we've left them in the ditch, especially the one that's offline. We've left them submerged within that offline ditch, and we've been taking out of the 3rd ditch to replace plates in the 1 and 2 ditches. Like I said, we're getting down there quite a bit. Right now, we're down about 800 plates in the 2 tanks, with the other tank just about being out of the replacement plates altogether. So this purchase that we would like to move forward with would be for 2,000 plates. It would bring ditches 1 and 2 back up to full capacity, and then bring back up ditch 3, which could be used as a thickener, to about 60%. And a thickener is much different than actually trying to remove the solids out of ditches 1 and 2. And that was originally what the design was for ditch 3 to be a thickener. And what that does is thickens up the effluent that comes out that we need to haul from the satellite plant to the main plant. So right now, we're spending staff time hauling liquids back to the main plant that are consisting somewhere in the 5 to 7% solids range. If we can get that much higher, it certainly is going to cut down staff time from having to haul from the satellite plant to the main plant. And what we're looking at right now is this purchase getting us through the next about a year, and actually identifying what that plan would be moving forward, whether it's a move away from these Kubota-style plates to ceramic or some other alternative. But even that, once we identify it, we're into the following budget season. So we're looking at somewhere into 2021, late 2021, before we would do anything to retrofit or upgrade these ditches that are out at the satellite plant. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for Craig?
I know that these plates do cost a lot of money, and over many years, talked about lots of different things and stuff. So, you know, I appreciate your expertise in this area, you know, and your job is to give us the best advice that we can moving forward. And I've been one that am into buying quality tools if I'm going to buy a tool. So, you know, I think that's what we have to do, in my opinion, is to follow your recommendations on this.
Would you, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Kim.
I'm done.
The Kubota plates are not the ceramic plates?
They are not.
So the
They're
ceramic plates would take more retrofitting?
They would. They can't, so the Kubota plates and the ceramic plates can't interact together. You wouldn't take one ditch and put half Kubota plates and half ceramic plates together. You really need to stick with that one brand. And right now, the Kubota plates can be replaced. It's a tube. It's about a 1/4 inch clear tube that goes between what is like a branch arm or a main that kind of comes out that's got tubes off of it that plug into the plates. That's not the same application that you would have with ceramic plates. So if you're going to upgrade a ditch, you would have to upgrade the entire thing to ceramic plates. And ceramic plates run about a little over half again as much as the Kubota plates.
Okay.
Other questions? Craig, the plates that are in there currently, have they been ongoing replacement, or are those, most of those original, or?
They are not original. We had a major failure. I'm not going to fish for a date. It's been quite some time ago. It's been about a decade ago that we had a major failure that was an insurance claim, that we had quite a bit of damage to the plates. They ended up replacing all of the plates at the time that failure happened, and replaced everything. And we've been working off some of these spares up to the point of a few years ago where we had to shut down tank 3 and started basically robbing out of tank 3 to keep 1 and 2 running. So they're not the original plates, but they have been in there for better than a decade, I believe. We've done some, since that, just to clarify, it really wasn't a plate issue 10 years ago. That wasn't the issue with the insurance claim. It was the screens above at the headworks that weren't to a small enough diameter to not let debris through the screens, which ended up destroying the plates further downstream. So it wasn't a Kubota issue, it was a screening issue back up at the headworks.
Okay.
So just wanted to clarify that. We are getting a very good product in Kubota, and those have worked for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. And all this was approved by our council in less than a year ago, right?
You approved the purchase of, through the budget process,
budget,
approved the
yeah.
purchase of the ceramic plates to upgrade
Okay.
and basically double the capacity of the plant at I believe it was $1.2 million. We're proposing to spend about $200,000 of that for this, I won't call it an upgrade, but to upgrade the plates that have been damaged or failing in those tanks. And then we would take a different look at, once we get the facilities plan done, of how do we move forward with this, and what does that look like as far as need of capacity and durability of these plates.
When would that be?
When
When would the
Look- go back
facilities
and look
plan
at
be
the
done?
update.
So like I said before, we would be out into budget season 2021 likely before we were to do some sort of upgrade.
So the extra $1 million that we're not spending is gonna go back into the fund for the budget next year?
Correct, correct. It'll go back into the sewer fund.
So basically, there's a risk that in 3 or 4 years, let's say, we do a major upgrade in the plant, we'll be destroying some useful life in these plates.
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, that's our risk.
Yes.
Yeah.
And alternatively, your risk is violations through DOE if we don't replace these. We've had some failures with turbidity, and that's basically the biggest one, is too many solids getting through. And it's not, and certainly completely up to this council, it's not a huge risk at this point. It really is a shutdown of the reclaim water and our customers that are on reclaim water. Once you hit that certain threshold where you're getting more contaminants through those plates and you basically can't disinfect, then once we hit those levels, we have to shut off the reclaim portion of it. Everything wastes to the spray field. So anybody that's using that for irrigation, flushing of toilets, fire lines, things like that, would be out of service, is the biggest risk. If we have an overall failure where we get down to that 60 to 70% range, then we've got more of a problem. And I don't see that being too far off on the horizon here coming as we continue to get these plates that fail. But immediate future is not a horrible risk. It's more into the future, a year down the road.
And predicting their failure is probably not available.
No, it's not. The only time we notice the failure when the turbidity spikes and the turbidity goes up, and we don't notice it until that process actually happens, and the operators that are out there in the field see that turbidity spike and know that a cluster of the plates has gone down or failed.
Any other questions for Craig? Okay, I'll ask for first reading of Resolution 1150-0719.
Resolution number 1150-0719, a resolution of the City of Shelton, Washington, declaring the purchase of Kubota membrane units and associated component parts to be clearly and legitimately limited to a sole source and waiving competitive bidding requirements for such purchases.
Okay, any further questions, comments? We concur to move this forward to August 20th action item, right? Thanks, Craig. Okay. Back to Public Works Director on the Washington State striping agreement.
And Mr. Mayor, if I will, I believe I need to recuse myself from any commentary and ultimately any vote on this, just due to the fact that I work for the Department of Transportation Highway Maintenance Division, and I believe there's a little bit of an ethical boundary here, so I will step out
Okay.
for this conversation.
Thank you, Councilmember. You may
I can stay?
here.
Okay. Well, I think I have to step out.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if Councilmember recuses himself,
You have
he
to
has to
step
leave
out.
the room.
Oh, okay.
All right, I'll
All
just
right.
be.
Close the door.
I should have called you earlier with my questions.
Candy bar machine over there.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Apparently it was something I said there, but thank you, Mayor, council members. The striping contract that we have had over an extended period of time, my knowledge, over about a 20-year period, we have been using the same private contractor for long line striping for the last 20 years. There aren't a lot of long line stripers in the state of Washington. We have gone out for bid at a very large burden to city staff. We figured it took somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 hours total of just staff time. That's not including legal or the council's time to approve contracts of that sort. That would be just staff time to prepare those documents and put those out to bid, waiting for responses. With a contract of this size, we need to get 3 responsive bidders. For the last, like I said, about 20 years, we have come up with 2 responsive bidders. We have not been able to get a third. Same thing with this year's contract. So we have looked at moving in a little different direction. So we reached out to WashDOT and asked them if they would be interested when they come by on Highway 101 when they're striping to swing into Shelton and get the city of Shelton done. This accomplishes a few things, not just the bid requirements and those sorts of things that would alleviate some staff time having to work on this and signing a longer contract with WashDOT overall, but it also helps us with the quality of product. We don't have, basically paint is measured in mil thickness. We don't have a way to actually measure that unless we send it off, spend some money, send it off to a lab. We haven't done that in the past. WashDOT does meet all WashDOT specs. They are tied to that. So we feel like we would get a better product. I do apologize that we don't have a contract in front of you that actually outlines pricing to compare between the private sector and public. We will have that early next week to bring to you before you actually vote to move forward with this, this contract. And if we feel that those are too out of line to bring back to you, we won't bring that back to you on the 20th to vote on if it's way out of line. We don't think it's going to be. We think it's going to be right in line with the private sector, if not cheaper. So we'll have to take a look at that once those numbers come in before we bring this back to you as a final contract for a vote on the 20th. But one of the reasons why we did rush this just a touch, we did just go through our chip seal. We've got some roads out there that don't have striping. They've got temporary striping on there, and we would really like to get those striped before that temporary striping starts to come off. And the contractor that we did have that was going to come in and do the striping had indicated now that they are too busy and they are out into late September or early October to actually get in to do the striping on the private sector, because we had gone through bid solicitation for this year and identified a private company to do the long line striping. Hadn't brought that contract to the council yet. But now they have reached out to us and told us that they are quite a ways out. So that is really what prompted us to reach out to WashDOT to see if they were interested in helping us out to get long line striping done. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I have a couple. The potential contractor this year, is that the same one we've used in the past?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And is there anything that precludes the city from using a private contractor on a 3 to 5 longer term? I mean, it sounds like we bid this out annually. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is there anything in RCW or anything that wouldn't allow us to agree with a contractor for a 3 or 5 year window?
Through the private sector?
Through the private sector?
Yes, bid law of this size of a contract, my understanding is that it needs to go out to bid on an annual basis.
Okay. Is that RCW?
I believe so. We can bring that back to you, Mayor, and yes.
will
But that is my understanding,
Okay.
And I apologize if that is incorrect, but we will bring that RCW back to you before we vote on this on the 20th.
Right, and, yeah.
And just ballpark, what are we talking about as far as either linear feet or cost?
Cost ranges, and it has been escalating quite a bit over the last few years. This year, we're in the $15,000 to $20,000 range is where we're at now. We've got about 63 lane miles of streets in Shelton. We don't stripe all of those, but we do have a very large roadway network, so quite a bit of long line striping out there. This contract does not include your crosswalks, your stop bars, things like that. Those are done by city staff. We just don't have the capability of doing long line striping to this magnitude. We have done some roads just recently. We identified a roadway that was lacking of striping on Angleside Road, and city staff went out and touched that up with a machine that we have, but not overall citywide could be done by city staff.
So you said 15 to 20,000-ish. What has it been in the past?
It's been over the last 4 or 5 years. It's been in the $10,000 range. I believe this year's budget was like 12,000 for that, and it certainly is going to exceed that budget for this year.
Comments, questions? I'll just make this statement. You know, I feel for where the city's at, government, because that's not what I'm used to, you know. But I really hate to see that we're backed in the hole because of regulations requiring us to use, you know, bid it out annually. I mean, I understand that causes us a lot of grief when dealing with those contractors. So I appreciate that. I just wish we could, maybe not this contract, but eventually work something out, but it sounds like it's not our issue, so.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll certainly look into that and verify that to make sure that that is the case, that we can't enter into a longer term contract with a private contractor.
Okay. So we concur to move this forward to action item for the 20th? All right, thank you very much, Craig.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Did you grab Joe?
Yes.
Oh,
Just leave them there.
We're kind of going to finish the meeting. Oh,
Right.
Is that your phone? Put it off back there.
No,
Honey.
phone.
okay, we'll move on to our next item, which is agenda item which discusses the OpenGov software contract. City Manager Jeff Knight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of the public. One of the council's goals for the organization is to ensure accountable government. It's a strategic goal that the council developed earlier this year. And in order to ensure accountable government and transparency, we have talked to a couple of different vendors and chosen the OpenGov platform to provide the following benefits to the city. There are three major components to the platform. First is the budgeting and planning. The budgeting and planning platform will provide end-to-end budget development. Typically, as Aaron well knows today, that developing a budget year over year in an Excel spreadsheet is difficult and very time-consuming, several months' worth of work at least. With the OpenGov platform, we'll be able to do that more seamlessly, integrated online, and we'll be able to deliver that product and develop it more quickly as we advance through the process. The other portion of the module, performance management and strategic planning. This reporting module will give us the ability to issue what amounts to a report card to the community about how we're spending the public's resources and how what bang for the buck that we're getting for the resources that we expend on various programs, and data and statistics, which we can use to develop future programs on a data-driven basis. But we need to gather the data first, and at this point, all of that data is in many different directions, and this we'll be able to gather it in one place and then use that to make responsible decisions. The third part, or third component, is the citizen engagement platform. And that, one of the items that we really appreciated as part of that is the civility monitoring. But we also have a chance to engage citizens, conduct surveys with our citizens in Shelton and find out what direction they'd like us to go. is this a good idea or not, and communicate directly with our citizens from a single unified platform rather than several different social media platforms. We'll have one information source that can be trusted. We have Andrew Curcado here from OpenGov, and he's got a short presentation for us. The PDF, or I'm sorry, the PowerPoint slides are in your packet, and Andrew will go through those, and I'll jump in, chime in where appropriate as he goes through.
Perfect. Good evening, Mayor Rogers, council members. Again, it's Andrew Curcado. I'm with OpenGov. Before we go into it, just wanted to give a big thank you for welcoming me into your city and also for the opportunity to present here today. I'll be taking you through OpenGov's platform as it relates to some of the goals in budgeting and planning, operational performance and reporting, as well as communications and citizen engagement, and then also how we're able to bring in a lot of different data systems together into one place. So over the last few months, I've been working very closely with Jeff, as well as Aaron in finance, Tim in IT, and Andy in community development. And we identified quite a few different goals and challenges that relate very closely to OpenGov's platform. The first being on budgeting and providing a streamlined and strategic way to do the budget. The second on being able to make data-driven decisions based off of fresh data from all different data sources. And then third being improving citizen engagement and providing a better way to enable more educated and civil discussions about certain topics and initiatives, and also a better alternative to social media and Facebook. And then lastly, the ability to integrate in with your financial system as well as several other non-financial data sources. Just so you know, these challenges aren't unique to Shelton. We really see this across the entire country. You know, we are seeing a big push in general for governments to improve technology throughout their entire organization. And with that, a lot of our team actually comes from careers in local government. They experience these challenges firsthand. You know, a lot of times what we found is that it was due to you know, outdated technology or technology that didn't exist at the time. And really what they did is they all came together. They noticed there's a whole lot of software technology innovation going on in the private sector and personal life. You think about Facebook, you think about Netflix, you think about personal use, but there hadn't been a whole lot for government, and that became the sole focus of the company, was to provide software to help local governments run more effectively and accountably. We've grown pretty rapidly. We currently work with about 2,000 governments across the country, about 20 to 25 in the state of Washington. I'll go through a couple of screenshots here next, and then leave some time for Jeff to add in some color if needed. The first area that we've proposed partnership is for budgeting and performance, and really it's about providing a centralized location for all departments within the city to develop their operational, capital, and workforce budgets. It also allows you to do a lot of scenario planning and future planning. So you're able to see, if we were to take one direction, how that would affect the budget. And then you're able to then add in the collaboration aspect as you're doing your review.
And this is something that I appreciate, particularly the budget development. Not only will it save us a little bit of time, but we'll be able to game plan different scenarios. What directions the city wants to go, particularly with programs, but also workforce. We can tell what'll be needed in the future and give us a little bit of help with succession planning where needed, which is always something, or usually something that's lacking in government organizations.
Great. The next area is for operational performance and helping governments make data-driven decisions. And really what we'll do here is we'll integrate directly in with your financial software as well as other non-financial data sources, bring that together all into one place so that you can do your trending, your analysis, and make the data-driven decisions. We're able to create kind of saved views for all your different department heads as well as for council. So if you have certain things that you discuss at every meeting, you can have a template for that ready to go. And and have the ability to click in, drill down into any specific detail that you want to see. You're able to bring in unlimited years of data, so we can, again, you can analyze as many years past as well as project into the future. And then you can share that internally or with council or with the public.
And this is an important part, I think, of our particular circumstance here in Shelton is after we conduct our analysis, our current analysis on whether to keep our current financial software or move to a different platform, as part of the contract here, we've negotiated the ability to basically install the program twice for no additional cost.
And the last area that we'll focus on is for communications and reporting or citizen engagement. One of the challenges that we see across governments throughout the country is that government is complex. It's not always easy to explain city strategy or the reasons why you're doing certain things. And so this is the ability to take that data that we've now all consolidated into one place, share that out to the public, add in context, add in the narrative, and then also gather feedback and solicit feedback. As Jeff mentioned, we do have civility monitoring built into the platform. So if discussions do get heated, they'll be quarantined and filtered out. And the idea behind this is that we're able to then educate residents, increase public transparency, but then also provide a way for more civil discourse and an educated debate.
And this is the piece about transparency. With the dashboards and the reporting ability, any of our citizens or any of us at any time can go look and see what's happening. And we can create the interactive stories, which I think is important. Let people know the benefits of projects that we're working on visually, not only in text, which sometimes is difficult to visualize going forward.
So would it have like a month-to-date or year-to-date, like you're already into the budget season's already started, you start spending money, would it show online to what we've got left, or maybe even a trend that we're gonna be going over that budget?
Yeah, budget to actual, it will show that, and the important part of the stories I was talking about is we had a situation, not a situation, but a circumstance earlier this year where one of our departments in the first quarter had spent 50% of their budget. Now that's, when you glance at it, that kind of makes people uncomfortable, but when you know the story behind it, it's because we pay our insurance premium for the full year in January. That's why. But be able to tell that story and let people know the reasons behind it is important, I think, for transparency, and also people to ask more educated questions about the discussion that we're having with council and internally among staff.
And worth noting as well, you do have the ability to decide, how much or how little detail you want to share. If you want it to be just high level out to the public, you can do that. But then for internal use, you can go down to the transactional level detail or as much detail as you'd like. You do have the ability to control that. I'll show just a couple of quick examples of results and other governments who have utilized the platform. We see on the budgeting side, regularly our customers are able to complete the budget in 30 to 50% less time. Additionally, we tend to find that because they're able to do a lot better trending and strategic planning, they can also reallocate funds. We just had one government who was able to reallocate $2 million of budget that they realized that they were overstaffing over a period of 3 to 5 years. Kind of on the internal reporting and the data analysis side, we regularly see, again, 70 to 90% time savings in all the reporting because we can save all those views. We are integrated directly into the system, so once they're created, it's as simple as refreshing the report. And then lastly, probably a kind of a big, big headline here, but the ability to then take this data and share it both with council, with department heads, and with the public in an easy way just leads to better understanding throughout the community. Last bit here, so we are a software vendor, but we really don't see ourselves as just a vendor. With all of our customers, we really do view it as a partnership, and we will be there to support the city as they're utilizing the platform, and even add in kind of some value-added consulting work as well. So if you have, again, certain topics or certain surveys that you're looking to do that you've never done before, you'll have access to our team and the work that we've done with 2,000 other governments.
And just like to add on at the end here, this is about making sure that our citizens are informed about what we're doing, how we're doing it, providing the data to allow them to judge how well we're doing it. And if there's some ideas that people outside the organization have that we could be more efficient in our operations, it's absolutely something that we want to listen to. And this allows people to have the background knowledge and data to make those kind of suggestions if they'd like.
Well, I think we budgeted for some software upgrades to make things more transparent, and I think it's great.
Joe?
Just one thing is, as you are familiar with this, the place where you were before, you know how this works personally.
Yep.
So I think it's important for us because that gives another level of credibility to something, you know, because we might not totally understand this presentation, but we know that you know our city and you know what you came from and that this would be a beneficial product for us. And I think that has taken away concerns that I may have had, which we've had heated discussions over, oh, quite heated. You don't know what heated discussions we've had, but over this type of situation, and you have won me over. So I'm in support of this.
Councilmember Schmidt?
Just a couple questions. I noticed in kind of the statement of work, he talks about, so a little technical maybe with this, but Google Chrome is preferred browser, and there's some specifics in there. Is this mobile friendly? I mean, the majority of our customers are going to be looking at this from a mobile device, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of those stories that Jeff had mentioned, they show up kind of, they're formatted directly for a smartphone. Even all the reports, so if you are trying to do public-facing reports or for internal department heads, if you're looking to do your reports, that can all be pulled up on the phone as well.
Okay. Talking about scalability with this, so let's say this kind of takes off, and it's great, and it's something we want to continue to kind of build on. What does it look like from your model as scaling this out and expanding? How does that work for us?
Great question. So one of the great things about OpenGov is that we don't charge by amount of data in the platform. We don't charge by number of users or number of visitors. It is a flat rate. The way that we see it, we want to have as many internal staff members as well as public members coming to the site as often as possible, and we see that as a success. So we don't charge any additional for amount of data or amount of users.
Kind of internal questions. There were a couple things that I noticed also that I would just suggest that staff review with current Office of the Chief Information Officer and Privacy Officer policies existing with IT security and data security and things like that. That just review and make sure that that's kosher and in line with existing state kind of rules. I noticed there's a couple of requests to have like an open FTP or just little things like that. Right now, I would take any IT security pretty darn seriously, and especially in government. And I'm assuming you're very familiar with working with other government entities, but just make sure we check that box. My last question, Mayor, if I may, one more, is the non-financial data sources. It sounds like obviously the finance portion of this is large, but there may be some needs for other data sources. Do we know, is this going to be something that basically is existing data that you have within the city, or is this something that is like a new data collection venture? And are we balancing staff time and not just asking for more and more data so we can populate charts and graphs on a web page?
Sure. So deciding what metrics we're going to use to track different departments as part of the program that we're developing now, deciding what's important to track so that we can see where the possibilities are to improve the operations of the city. Some of it will be new data collection. The city in the past has not done a whole lot of data collection, so we don't have a baseline on which to establish our performance management program. However, if we do purchase new software, that will be something that will be plug and play with OpenGov. So the data collection will be automatic, very similar to our current finance system, and won't take I don't want to say won't take any staff time, but it won't take a substantial amount of staff time to make sure that works. It's, the systems talk directly to each other.
Great.
Other questions? Oh, it's the same question I've asked Jeff, I think 3 or 4 times, to Andrew about a new financial system, if that comes to be. I know we've worked that into the estimate or the bid. And you feel confident that if we develop this overlaying the current financial system, we get a new financial system, that it won't be a order of magnitude issue as far as revamping it. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, so revamping as far as setup or as far as staff time or?
Well, all. I mean, I assume the data is being exported out, so I assume that process will have to be recreated, and some more additional mapping we'll have to do for accounts, but I'm just concerned that my concern is we believe we may change. We're putting this over the top, and then in a year or 2 or 3, when we change, it's gonna be a lot bigger issue than what we anticipate today.
Yeah, definitely a valid concern. And so from our end, what would happen if you did switch software or financial software vendors is we'd have to build out a new integration directly to the new system. And we would kind of do that as you were migrating over data from the old system. But then as long as the new software vendor has the ability to export into Excel or CSV, we're able to bring it into OpenGov. So it would be an additional integration on our end, and then some validation time from staff. But we tend to take the heavy lift on the integration process.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you, Andrew. Thanks, Jeff. So we will move this with concurrence to action item in August 20th?
Yes.
All right. Excellent. Okay, our next group is our action items, which we have none tonight. So we'll go directly into the second public comment period.
Mike Olson.
Mike Olson, I live at 309 North 2nd, 1 block from Brewer Park, and that's what I'm here to talk about tonight. Due to a recent court ruling, you can no longer remove unhoused people from public property unless you have a shelter for them to go to, which has created an explosion at Brewer Park in the last 2 weeks. I live, like I say, a block away. Over the years, occasionally somebody's sleeping in the park. And right now, there's anywhere from 6 to 12 people nightly sleeping in the park. Cars are starting to line up as they sleep in their cars, if they have a car, and they're not moving them either, which is another issue that I believe the court's ruled you cannot evict them from public property as long as they're a licensed vehicle. Which brings me to another issue is human sewage. You've got, a dozen people sleeping there. Where do they go to the bathroom in the morning? Community Lifeline provides a cold weather shelter 6 months out of the year. They will be extending that for 1 month if the city allows it, which isn't going to address the problem next summer. That park will become the new homeless encampment, is my opinion. And I think the city needs to look at this long range and short range in what are we going to do. Lacey and Olympia have addressed this, which is costing money. So as you come up to your budget meetings, something to be considered. Community Lifeline is in financial distress. In order for them to be a year-round open shelter, they need a $200,000 sprinkler system. And I communicate with one of the board members quite frequently, and he thinks within 3 to 5 years they may have to close because of the ongoing expense that they need, which means that the city has no place for the homeless to go, which will, in my opinion, create homeless encampments in Brewer Park. The most pressing issue, I think, is a bathroom. I know it's been done before, didn't succeed real well, but I think it's time to seriously look at this. We're going to have a big issue coming up next summer, I believe, in the city of Shelton, if we're not going to address this. If we don't have a shelter for them to go to, they can camp anywhere they want on public property. You know, streets, parks, you know, wherever they want. So I just want to bring that to your attention, that it's a real issue. Drive by sometime. If any of you haven't lately, it's become a real nuisance over there. And I appreciate trying to work with the homeless. It's not their problem, but it's the city's problem right now, and we need to address the human sewage in the alleyways. Green Diamond's got an issue with it. Memorial Hall's got an issue with it. It's spilling over into the neighborhood, and soon it'll be downtown. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
All right. So that remains our city manager report from City Manager Jeff Knighton.
Couple things. First, I wanted to mention that the city has also started a lean process, which lean is from the Center for Government Innovation in the state of Washington, and it's intended for governments, municipal, and at the state level to make their operations more efficient, to handle their operations with the personnel that are already on site and ready to go, and just make sure that our operations are as efficient as possible. And it's continuous improvement. So once you go through a process for one particular process that the city handles, a permit issuance, you can take a look at it again and again. There's always an opportunity to get better, and we have started that process here at the city, and hopefully we'll be conducting the first mapping meeting, for lack of a better term, later this year. So that is something we're initiating here at the city. The second is, did want to let the council know that we are in contact with the Department of Health and Department of Ecology about the shellfish closure area. So we are pursuing that and continuing to be diligent about at least attempting to solve that issue. Can't give any guarantees, but we are doing the best we can and trying extremely hard to get that issue taken care of. Let's see, as was mentioned a little bit earlier during council reports, tonight is National Night Out. I know we had an event at Mankey Hill a little bit earlier this evening, and I believe that the event at Neelan Park should still be going on once we're done here this evening. So we can head down there, some staff members can head down there and just interact with the folks from that neighborhood. I think that would be great. And also wanted to mention on August 30th at 1 o'clock, the city will be closing at 1, the Friday before Labor Day, so that we can have our employee picnic and celebrate all the folks that work so hard to make Shelton a great place to live. I'm going to throw around a football and hopefully not tear my rotator cuff, and have some good time out at the park and have some burgers and some hot dogs. With no pain, hopefully. Let's see, the cleanup program is still going very, very well. We've had our third, I believe we'll have our fourth on this upcoming weekend, and then we'll move down to Bordeaux Elementary School for the next 4. I don't have any data for that as of yet, but I hope to have at least some quantifiable data for you on August 20th at the code enforcement update presented by our code enforcement officer. And next week is the Washington City County Managers Association Conference in Kennewick. So I will be out next week, but I will be available to you by phone or by email. And Donna will be giving you a call probably tomorrow or maybe Thursday to set up telephone briefings for us for our August 20th meeting. I'll give you a call while I'm there, and we can run through those issues, what's happening there. Lastly, we have 2 awards to hand out tonight to the same person, and wanted to recognize her for the effort that she has put in being a municipal leader. AWC has issued 2 certificates, and I'll go through them both really quickly. The AWC Certificate in Municipal Leadership offers municipal leaders essential knowledge and skills to effectively operate within the law, plan for the future, and secure and manage funds and foster community and staff relationships. Basic certificate program was developed in 1997 and requires members to complete 30 credits. The advanced certificate was added later and requires an additional 30 credits. Approximately 1,000 elected officials in the state of Washington have completed the basic certificate, and only about 300 have completed the advanced certificate. The core requirements to meet, to achieve the certificate are roles, responsibilities, and legal requirements, meeting management, labor relations, those types of things, public sector resource management for finance, forecasting, and grant development, community planning and development, so some information, some education, background, and knowledge on land use, zoning, annexation, and strategic planning, and effective local leadership for soft skill and human resource development, networking, and community outreach. Our council member tonight that has achieved both the Certificate of Municipal Leadership and the Advanced Certificate of Municipal Leadership is Councilmember McDowell. And I'm happy to present these to her tonight. And very happy for her to achieve that.
4 years.
Thought that was gonna be me.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Congratulations, Kathy.
Congratulations.
It's been some work, but it's been an honor to be able to do that and learn a lot that goes on in the city and government. So I'm not sure there'll be more to learn, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome. That's all I have for this evening. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. If not,
Any questions for Jeff tonight? Okay, any other things from the council tonight?
At this point, I would move that we table the LTAC report on Blue Ash from the Forest to our August 20th meeting.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Favor of tabling to the 20th?
Aye.
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 All right. Check on Dwayne, make sure he's okay tonight.
Make sure he's okay.
Okay. Hearing nothing else, we are adjourned to our meeting on Tuesday, August 20th.